Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. Today, there's a lot to talk about, especially with the rankings that came out on Sunday. Lots of chaos there. For this episode, I'm going to be bringing on a guest. This is Chris. He's one of my friends, and we're going to be talking a lot about college football and a little bit about swimming as well. So let's just jump right on in. Florida State being left out of the rankings. What's your first thought? Like when you look at it, just objectively seeing that they're left out after being in the top four the past few weeks. What do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm going to preface this with saying that Ryan knows a lot more about college football than I do. I'm not really super up to date with the current landscape of the college football, but I know that leaving Florida State out of the conference championship is definitely a controversial thing, especially given the fact that they're undefeated this season. Do I think that the other teams didn't have strong performances? No, but I think Alabama taking the spot over Florida State is definitely something that there's some controversy behind, and for good reason.
Yeah, I agree. And there's been years past too. Like there's some people that are comparing Florida State to like TCU, saying they don't want another TCU situation. But the fact of the matter with that, though, that actually improves Florida State's case, in my opinion, because TCU went on to the national championship. They made it past the semifinal round. And people are saying with Florida State, they're going to get crushed in that semifinal round. So, I think that's another thing that we should be considering as well, don't you think?
Yeah. So, like you said, kind of like what's the point of playing these conference games if they're already predetermined who's going to go into the conference championship?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of money behind it. I don't know if you know, but I think CBS, their last game that they streamed or covered for the SEC was the Bama-Georgia Conference Championship game. Next year, it's only going to be covered by ESPN. What do you think about that? As just because you see a lot of stuff online with ESPN and the way they report stuff, like they're gonna have they now have skin in the game with these games.
Well, yeah, I definitely think that obviously money is a driving factor in college football. I don't think that's a question, but yeah, streaming services definitely have an important role in that too. So.
I think money should just taking money out of the equation. I think just like with college sports, it shouldn't have as much of an impact just because, lots of people they watch college sports because of the amateurism of the sport, because you go, everyone matters. You fight your way throughout the regular season to make it to where you are. But do you think with Florida State being kept out of the playoff that this sends a bad message about not only winning in college sports, but also with conferences? Because we saw with the Pac-12, there's going to be no more Pac-12 next year. Do you think that maybe next year with the ACC, or even in the next couple years, that could happen because of what happened here?
Yeah, it's definitely it's a money thing for sure. They're just putting on the conference games, it seems like, to obviously bring in revenue. So, and then not taking whoever won the game into consideration for the final. Obviously, Florida State definitely should have been included. So,
yeah, I think that's spot on. All right, so I think. Have you seen any graphics with the 12 potential 12-team playoff?
I have not.
Do you know? What do you know about the 12-team playoff? Let's start with that.
I don't know anything about the 12-team playoff.
Okay. So I think the 12-team playoff that starts next year. I think there's going to be. Next year. It's going to turn into the Power Four because of the death of the Pac-12. Which is unfortunate because this year the Pac-12 was arguably the best conference in football. They had, especially towards the beginning of the season, they had the most ranked teams. I think they had 7 at most in Washington, Oregon State, Washington State, and a few others. I mean, Colorado was up there at one point. Arizona's still up there. Like, but with the way it's going to work, I think they're actually going to have the conference championship's going to have more weight. So, like, you get a bye for the conference championship. So those top 4 seeds, there's going to be one spot for each conference.
Gotcha.
And then the remaining 7 teams that are in the top, they're in the top 12 are going to get a spot. And then whoever the highest ranked group of 5 team is also going to get a spot. So I think that's probably good for college football just because of the inclusion of group of 5 teams in the playoff. I mean, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's like you don't really see these smaller schools get as much opportunities to like go out. Like the most they get really is the bowl games that are not the playoffs. Like it's.
Yeah, I think definitely though in recent history, there's like so many bowl games now. I know maybe 30 years ago there weren't as many bowl games. So bowl games are definitely becoming more prevalent. That's also probably a money thing, but it does give smaller schools a chance to play at a higher level. But I think with the 12-team playoffs, like that also is another chance for maybe smaller schools to kind of get their spot in the overall.
Yeah, like that. I think it's a good next step for sure for those schools. So I mean, we were kind of talking about this earlier before we got in with the requirements to get in to the college football playoff. So you have to be undefeated, you have to be in a Power 5 conference, you have to win your Power 5 conference championship, and then the last requirement, which kind of has an asterisk on it just because it's at the bottom of the list. And I'm going to sum it up just because, I mean, it's a really long bullet-pointed rule, but it's injuries can be factored in to looking at the quality of a team's performance. Kind of just hopping back over to Florida State. I mean, my take is that being undefeated, being a Power 5 conference champion, I think that has more weight than having an injured player, especially because it's one player. Like they're basing this off of one player, and the narrative that's been going around is that the third string quarterback is going to be playing, but both the second string would have been playing in the playoff, like they would be playing in the playoff game, and both of those quarterbacks, like they had just first seen the field like as starters in the past few weeks. Like Rodemaker saw his first start against I think it was Northern Alabama when Jordan Travis got injured, and they're back like their third string. He pretty much saw his first start against Louisville. Don't you think that the fact that they beat a top 15 team, a top 10 defense in Louisville, that should elevate their ranking, like elevate their performance in any way? Like,
yeah, I mean, you talk about the list of requirements in order to make the championship, but I don't really know why they would even put those in play. I mean, they're ranked in order of importance, and then in winning your conference game is up there in the importance, and then they consider taking Alabama over Florida State, who's also undefeated this season, just for the fact that their quarterback, right, is injured.
Yeah.
But you talked about how strong Florida State's defense was, and that was kind of their driving factor in their performance this year. So yeah. I don't know.
Especially towards the end when Jordan Travis went down. I mean, their defense held they held their opponents. They held Florida and Louisville to less than 20 points. I think Florida might have gotten exactly 20, but they held them less than 20 points. They held their other opponents throughout the year to less than 30 points, and their defense is literally ranked higher than Alabama's defense. So I mean, we all saw that Alabama beat Georgia. So I mean, do you think people I mean, just now that Florida State's now in the playoff and they have a bowl game against Georgia, do you think that game could be closer than people are making it out to be just because of the defense in Florida State?
Yeah. I could foresee that being a pretty close game. Taking Florida State in that one though. Gonna have to take them.
You're gonna take Florida State?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe that's controversial of me, but that's just from what I saw in the Alabama Georgia game and Florida State's performance over the years. So
yeah, no, I think I would take Florida State too, just because I mean Georgia this year, especially out of the past 3 years that they've played. I mean, the last 2 years they've won a national championship, and they've been like undisputedly the most dominant football team in college football. But this year, I mean, they had a really easy schedule. They looked shaky against some of the good teams. Like, I mean, Missouri, they looked shaky against Missouri at points. South Carolina, I think they just squeaked into a bowl game. But I mean, and they only lost to Alabama by 3 points. So I mean, what is it really like that big of a quality win? I mean, I think just because, like, just taking out the fact that Georgia was number 1 the entire year.
Yeah. So I mean, when Florida State plays Georgia, and if they were to win, what do you think that kind of reflects on the championships?
I think it reflects really poorly on the committee. I think it's really going to show the oversight on their part of Florida State. I mean, there's a couple other things that kind of show that as well, like Jordan Travis not being a Heisman finalist, because that was the whole basis of their argument for keeping them out of the playoffs, was that Jordan Travis was such a good player, the best player in college football, that taking him out of the game had such an effect on the offense. If that's, like, by that logic, he should be a Heisman. He should win the Heisman, right? I mean, you know, just using strictly their logic.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some flawed logic there. There's some politics going on in play that aren't so evident, or I mean, maybe are evident, but people aren't probably talking about as much.
Yeah, I mean, a term that I've seen online with the ESPN analysts, they're calling them talking heads. Yeah. Because they basically preach that the SEC is the god of the conferences, that it's like the undisputed best football conference, just because they've had consecutive years where they've made the playoff. And this would have been the first year that an SEC team wouldn't have made it. But I mean, I think you look at the performance for out of conference, they were 7-9 for out of conference scheduling. I mean, Georgia's schedule was in controversy this year. Even like Alabama's schedule was kind of in controversy. I mean, they at least had the guts to play Texas to improve their strength of schedule. But if they didn't have Texas as an out of conference scheduling game, then their strength of schedule would have dropped dramatically. Which, I mean, that would have changed the whole conversation in a lot of ways, and that Alabama could have been undefeated, or that Florida State would be arguing strength of schedule. Like, it would completely flip the argument there.
Yeah, well, I will say this. SEC definitely brings in the most money for college football, so there might be maybe some ulterior motives there, but I don't think that's undisputed, the fact that SEC is definitely the biggest money truck there.
It's one of the oldest conferences that's kind of stayed the same. I mean, this year they're expanding. They're adding Oklahoma and Texas to their lineup of teams. Big Ten is one of those other big conferences as well. They're also expanding. I mean, I think this is the second or third expansion of the Big Ten. Adding 4 of the 12 Pac-12 teams to their lineup of teams. But I think the expansion of the conferences, I mean, luckily the ACC is getting other teams. Like, they're getting kind of the weaker links of the Pac-12 in Cal and Stanford, at least with regards to football. And they're getting SMU, which, I mean, they're SMU's 11-2, which, I mean, that's That's good. But yeah, no, I think the ACC could be in danger because you've probably seen that teams like Florida State and Clemson have been trying to get out of that conference for so long now, going either to the SEC or the Big Ten, or just like anywhere else.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely a smaller number of conferences now. Having, I don't know, over 14 teams in the Big Ten is kind of questionable. I mean, it should be 10, I guess. But so what do you feel like that, not only in college football, but just college sports in general, how do you think like the consolidation of conferences is going to kind of play into the whole landscape of sports overall?
I mean, right now it kind of seems like it's almost like a vacuum. Like the Big Ten and the SEC are just kind of slowly absorbing teams. And I guess now you can even say conferences into their bubble. Like Pac-12's gone. The Pac-12 is just kind of going into the SEC and Big Ten bubble, a little bit into the ACC and Big 12 as well. But I think they should consolidate the conferences a little differently. Like one of the things that I do like about the SEC is that they're a lot more regional. Like all the teams are in like the southeast region of the United States, whereas like the Big Ten and you could say ACC as well. Like they're now, and even Big 12, just because Big 12 has teams on now, like arguably both sides of the coast. Like they're coast-to-coast conferences. So like that, like I think having that be more regional would be better for college sports in a sense that like making those matchups against like the bigger teams. Like, Texas and Alabama, that's kind of, it's an old matchup. They've been in different conferences for so long. So, it just makes makes those matchups more special. Now that Alabama-Texas matchup is just going to be an in-conference battle.
Yeah.
And it's going to mean nothing more.
Yeah, you just talk about the fact that all else aside, teams have to travel from place to place, and you're having, in the Big Ten, I guess, specifically people, you have Rutgers and you have USC. So, I don't know what that's going to look like for teams traveling during the year, but it definitely seems weird that the term conference isn't really even relevant anymore.
No.
you're just taking a group of teams all across the country.
Yeah.
So.
It's more of like a brand. Like on your point with travel, travel's going to be so much more expensive now. With the Big Ten, IU, we can take a bus up to Purdue, we can take a bus up to Michigan. Traveling by bus, so much cheaper than flying. We'd have to fly. I think we flew to Penn State and we fly to Rutgers, but now we're also going to have to fly to USC. We're going to have to fly to UCLA, Washington, Oregon. And flying is that. It's a lot of money. It takes time to do that. You have to go to the airport, pack a bunch of different things than you would on a bus.
Yeah, not even just in football, but I don't know, some of these schools obviously aren't making as much money through their games as others. I think that's pretty clear. But then not even just football, but you have every single sport that's going to have to travel across, and in schools that aren't able to maybe fund that travel, it's going to kind of create a problem there.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true. You look at swimming. Swimming doesn't make nearly as much as football, but they're going to have to travel the same amount, arguably. Right. We're now going to have to at least, I don't know if it's, do you guys switch pools every, do you go host here? If it was against USC, for a dual meet, we would host USC one year, and then the next year USC would host us, right?
I think that's how it would go, yeah.
Okay. So, for both those teams, that's going to suck. Something also to factor in is time change. And, because, that time change affects your body, it affects your well-being. And there's also the aspect of school. Because you're spending more time traveling, you're not spending as much time in the classroom. So, I think the whole concept of being a student athlete could just fly right on out the plane window.
Yeah, we see that just on an individual level for an individual college athlete taking time away from their week to travel super far. They're having to miss class. They're gonna have to make up all their work. Training is gonna be difficult too. Like it is tiring to travel. So like coming back and having to get right back to training, not a great feeling. Not good for people's recovery. Yeah, just in general, I feel like college sports as a whole are kind of moving more away from the amateur level and more towards like nearing towards the professional level. I mean, you see like NIL deals and stuff like that. College football players are making money. So
Yeah.
it's basically becoming just a subset of pro athletes.
I think it's kind of sad. I think it's good for the college athletes that they're making money because, like scholarships are very, like, they have to be divided out equally in some way. So, the college athletes definitely benefit from NIL, but, it's also kind of a stab in the back, just like with the whole expansion, because now that the college athletes are making more money, now the conferences want to make more money, and they're kind of taking that, but they're taking it almost to like the next level. Like they're using their influence in media to essentially just get more money.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing to talk about is NIL and college athletes making money. I do think it does provide a great opportunity for amateur athletes to make money. But the point of being amateur is the fact that you're doing the sport for the sport
And for your school.
Exactly. I mean, it's like it's a pride thing. Playing for your school, it's an opportunity. Most of the time, at the highest level, you're getting your education paid for. So I don't know. I feel like that's maybe enough, and you can hold off for 4 years before making money through the sport. But I think it's definitely more difficult in the age of social media. Like the top college football players, top college basketball players are essentially famous. So it's difficult for them not to make money. But doing it, I guess, through the sport is kind of controversial.
Yeah. Like, and that way it's controversial. Like, in the way with social media, I think it's also kind of good in a way just because they're using their influence to bring more attention to the sport. And I think in that, like, using media in that way is okay. Just because, that's going to get more views, and that keeps the conferences happy in that sense, that they're going to be making more money off of viewership because people want to see their favorite college player. They want to see, like, their, you know what I mean? Like, and that way it's good. But at the same time, it's just very detrimental to what college sports is.
Yeah, and it all comes back to the money factor, right? Streaming football, streaming college football, college basketball, big college sports is it's all about the money essentially. So and that's what it's seemingly more about. It is sad that they're almost getting, I wouldn't say exploited, but I don't know. You can make the argument.
Yeah, I was kind of saying this earlier too, before we started recording, but like if it was the best 4 teams, then they wouldn't need to play the games. They would just look at the statistics and stuff based on the players that are brought in and the players that they currently have, and then be like, okay, we're gonna put Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan in the playoff every single year, and then those are our best 4 teams. Like, I think if it was the best 4 teams, they would have just done that, or they would have done some kind of subset of that, like with like kicking out either Texas or Washington in some way.
Yeah, it's like demoralizing for teams to not even get a chance, even though they played a great season. I think perfect example is Florida State this year. Should have definitely gotten the opportunity to play in the championships, but we're kind of robbed of that just because of the politics behind college football.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and in that sense, politics is one of the things that is hurting sports, especially college sports. Just because there's a lot of politics right now surrounding college sports. Before, like, there was kind of, like, one of the things that I've heard some people say is they don't like watching the NFL because of the politics there, or the NBA because of the politics there. but now college football, other college sports are now kind of getting put into that bubble as well. I think. I don't know about you, but like with the whole thing with the SEC and ESPN, and I mean even panelists like on ESPN, they're like they went to SEC schools or they have very big ties, very strong ties to the SEC schools. Like you look at I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's like Farbaum or something like that. It's like Jim Farbaum. Like he's known as someone like who went to Alabama and who's a huge advocate for Alabama no matter what. Which, I mean, I don't think that in reporting that is something that should be, like, I don't think his opinion should have as much weight if it's a biased opinion.
Yeah, bias there is definitely, it's kind of unavoidable. I'm just going to have to deal with it. But at the highest level, making decisions as in like the biggest decisions of choosing the teams for the championships, there's clearly politics behind that. And that's where it should kind of, at least get cut off.
Yeah. I mean, I've also seen a lot of stuff like the past couple weeks about like ESPN basically launched a campaign as soon as Jordan Travis got injured to essentially prove their case as to why Florida State shouldn't be in the playoff. Like they've just been bad mouthing Florida State and that team for like 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden now they're receiving backlash for doing that. And now they're trying to backstep from that decision. And yeah, I mean, like when I was on Twitter, like there's a lot of outrage against ESPN and the SEC right now because of what happened to Florida State.
Yeah. Definitely unfair.
All right, I think you want to move on to swimming? Because I think we kind of quite literally tore this to pieces.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I said some controversial things there. But like I said, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about college football. I'm just giving my two take of what I've learned over the past 24 hours. So,
hey, I mean, like this day and age, like anything can be controversial.
Right.
Like people can take anything, spin it into something controversial. Like that's just the world we live in right now.
Like something as basic as college football. So
yeah, something as basic as college football, where there's clear guidelines and there's a clear set of what guidelines have more weight than others, and yet, still decisions are made against those.
Right.
But yeah, so the midseason meets. So we're moving on to swimming now. For the midseason meets, those just wrapped up. I think. There's also the U.S. Open, so that's another big meet for the swimmers as well. I'm assuming some taper for one over the other for the midseason.
Generally, yeah.
So, from your experience since you swam, which do you think would be more important, and do you think that like the NCAA takes the swims from the U.S. Open into account for the rankings, especially this year, just because lots of teams are now swimming in meters?
Yeah, this year's definitely kind of a special year. I mean, it being an Olympic year, the U.S. Open is more, from what I saw, geared towards people who are either trying to make the Olympic trials, whether that be for the United States or for their home country, or I don't know, people in general, like pros in general, just trying to get their Olympic trials cuts. On the level of college, though, I think the midseason meets are way more important. So I think the way that most of those were actually set up this year is that they did prelims in meters and finals in yards. It might have been flipped. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. But I think that's just for the fact that it's an Olympic year. A lot of schools are doing meets this year, which is not normal because, as you know, college swimming is done in yards, and that's what the NCAA championships are done in. But for the U.S. Open, I know there's a lot of strong performances from a lot of different schools. I don't think that the NCAA is going to take that into consideration for college swimming rankings. Maybe they should. I don't know, but I think the performances at midseason, especially in the fact that they're both meters and yards, kind of gets a holistic view on every team.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. With the U.S. Open maybe being able to having that have maybe a little more weight in the rankings, but especially with college athletes, maybe that I don't know, because I did see also that apparently there has been a couple times where the NCAA championships was held in long course meters. I think one of those years was 2009, right after the Beijing Olympics. But yeah, no, you only see that happen. You only see meets in college every few years because of Olympic trials. But you even more rarely see it when it's in long course meters. I think there's also been times they've done short course meters, right, for NCAAs.
I have no idea. I think that changes the entire game. They're that would shift up rankings. People who come from an international background are typically better at the meters because that's what they've grown up doing. So schools with maybe a heavier international population or portion of their team, that definitely gives them the advantage if the NCAA meet were to be in long course meters. But yeah, I know that it's not very, people might not be super versatile across long course meters to short course yards. So that would put some people at an advantage and some people at a disadvantage. So I think it'd be interesting. I don't think it's going to happen this year. If I were in the position where that was me, I'd be so screwed if I had to do long course meters. I'm definitely a yard swimmer, but I think that's the case for a lot of people too.
Yeah, I know. When I swam club back home, we only had a yards pool, so swimming over the summer in meters just kind of screwed us over a little bit, and it changed our training in a really weird way. So to your point, saying that the international students, the swimmers, the international swimmers that would be swimming in short course meters, if the NCAA did short course meters, they would definitely have a huge advantage because from what I know that that pools in we used to swim short course meters way back when. There's a couple of schools actually. I think Valpo actually used to have a short course meters pool at one point as well. But Portage and Valpo were the two high schools in our area that had short course meters pools. But because of the use of short course meters kind of going away in America, they both got new pools. So and that's happening with a lot of pools around the country too. They're building new pools and getting rid of short course meters basically altogether.
Yeah, I mean, bringing it back all the way to high school swimming, I guess. I swam a few times in short course meters. Not fun. Those pools are ancient, and yeah, like you said, they got rid of them. But yeah, I didn't grow up swimming meters. That's definitely not something that most, I feel like, American swimmers do, growing up swimming meters. But
even long course.
Yeah, I mean, long course is just a small portion of the overall season, and I think that's pretty clear in the performance of international swimmers at these college meets and the U.S. Open specifically, where we saw the kind of domination by international swimmers.
Yeah, no, I mean, from what I last saw in the rankings, Arizona State, I think they had the highest combined score, but then they also had their unattached team was 8th place or something like that, which is just crazy.
Yeah, Arizona State's
they're filled with they have a very large international swimming what's the word?
Population group.
Yeah, population group.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. Super strong team. I don't know what the NCAA swimming rankings are going to look like this year. I don't want to give my take or give my sense because it might be a little bit controversial given the fact that I did swim here. But I don't know. Arizona State might be able to take down Cal. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think I agree with you on that. Just because we look at especially like with the men last year, Cal only won one individual event. They didn't win any relays. But they still won the whole meet because they used their depth and they had like 2 to 3 people in the top 8 every single time, and even some people in consolation finals where you can grab some points as well.
Yeah, depth is, I mean, probably the biggest player in the performance at the NCAA meet. Yeah, like you said, I mean, Cal only winning one individual event and then still winning the meet. So it's not maybe about who has the best people. It's about who has the most best people.
The most best people.
the most number of best people. So yeah, I don't know the depths of Arizona State's team this year. But I don't know.
It feels like it always gets bigger.
Yeah, they're definitely taking on some really strong performers. Freshmen this year, they're outstanding. So I'm looking forward to it. I think the midseason meets were a little bit telling of where teams stood, but we'll have to wait for the conference meets to see how those pan out in order to get a better sense of what the NCAA meet's going to look like.
So with going to like the conference championship meets versus like midseason meets, just because conference championships are so close to the NCAA championships, do you think that maybe the midseason meets might carry like more weight, like at least like with taper and training, like they're going to be more focused on the midseason meets rather than the conference meets? There's going to be a strong focus on both, but like,
right. Conference meets are a little bit weird in swimming, at least because of just kind of the turnaround, how difficult it is to turn around after one performance. I mean, the rest is it's necessary. It plays a huge factor in that. I think the Pac-12 has their conference like a week before NCAA's. So I think that always puts Cal kind of in a bad spot. I think they focus less on their conference meet than most teams do. So it's kind of a strategic game. I mean, not everyone that swims the conference meet is going to swim at NCAA's. That's known, but just kind of playing with specific people. I mean, you're gonna have to play around with your team a little bit and use different people in different areas in order to first of all win your conference meet or perform the best in your conference meet, but then also set people up in the best possible way to put your team at an advantage for NCAA's.
Yeah, just kind of speaking from experience, like in high school, there's conference sectionals and state, and all those meets were kind of just jam-packed right at the beginning, right at the end of the season.
Right.
Especially like in our area, like our conference was like 2 weeks before our sectionals or something like that. Like that's just very quick turnaround, and then state is a week later after sectionals.
Right.
So it's, just that quick turnaround, it really has an effect. I think you also swim at Carmel. So, like just the depth you guys have, like I'm sure you guys probably could swim like half of your team like at conference, half of it at sectionals, and then the sectionals team like goes to state.
Yeah, drawing the parallel between college swimming and high school swimming. So we're at Carmel at an advantage. We had a very strong and deep team, but we also weren't in a sectional that had maybe a lot of top performing schools or other individual swimmers. So that was an advantage for us. We were fortunate enough that we didn't have to really prepare as much for that meet. Same way as in college swimming, where you have to get the NCAA cut, you have to get the state cut at your sectional meet in high school. So that kind of looked like preparing people, I guess you would say, at the minimum level to get that cut in order to move on to the state meet. And I think that's kind of what maybe teams are doing in college too. But in college, it's a little bit different. You can get your NCAA cut at any meet throughout the season. So I think midseason meets is kind of an opportunity, or used as an opportunity for swimmers to get their NCAA cuts there, and then they don't have to worry as much about their conference meets. But then you also talk about conference meets; those are more important, obviously, than high school sectionals were. So for us, winning sectionals wasn't really. Talking about high school swimming, so winning sectionals wasn't really like the pinnacle of our performance during the year, because we had a relatively I don't know, easy sectional. I don't want to say that to put down other people's performance, but we definitely were in a position where we didn't have to rest up everybody. Then gave this the advantage for state. So I think that was kind of drawing the parallels between college swimming and high school swimming.
Yeah, because like they're both very different, like swimming environments, and you could argue even like different sports. Just because high school, like you swim much shorter events than in college, but there's also a lot of there's a lot of differences, but there's also a lot of similarities in that sense. Like you were saying with conference championships versus like high school conference and sectionals.
Yeah, so in college, and there's a lot more events that you can swim, but that also kind of it makes it easier, maybe not easier, but makes it more strategic for coaches kind of to play to everyone's different strengths. So you'll have a distance coach, and you'll have a sprint coach, and you'll have everything's very specialized in college. I don't think maybe as much in high school where you specialize in anything very specific, but definitely in college there's way more of that. So there's definitely different ways for each different group of people to approach both the conference and NCAA championship meets.
So I guess like post mid-season meets, winter break training, that is coming up very, very, very soon. We're about like halfway through dead week. We've got finals week next week, and then it's winter break. And college winter break is longer. So another difference between high school and college, like it's a week longer than than high school winter break.
Right.
So in college, you get that extra week of winter training. You basically have a month of just super intense training, like more intense probably like than the entire year, I'm sure, just because I'm assuming are not as focused on classes because there is none. Mm-hmm. So what from your experience, how much weight do you think winter break training has on like a coach's evaluation of the team?
Yeah, so just throwing this out there, I'm no longer swimming. I swam my freshman year at Indiana University, and I swam 4 years in high school. But so I can't speak to the current training because I'm not going through it right now. But I can talk about my past experiences with it at least. Winter break training is the most essential part of the entire season by far. In high school, it was something that was very valued. I know it is super valued here. But it's difficult because you kind of have to monitor people who, you're going to have to monitor the fact that people are going to go home and take time off. But really, the time off you have is limited because of the importance of the winter break training. So like you said, there's no classes. There's really nothing else to focus on besides training. So coaches really take that time to really hit it hard and set up everyone in the best possible way for the upcoming championship season. So it's definitely fundamental in preparing for championship season. I'm sure that you went through, being a high school swimmer, went through the difficult winter break training. It's pretty notorious. Difficult. Yeah, it's notorious for being difficult. Even in high school, in college, it's a little bit different. Last year, we got the chance to go to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on a training trip. So I think there's kind of there's more of that fun aspect to it. I can tell you that training maybe, 5 hours a day for 4 days a week, 5 days a week in high school when it's snowing outside and you're indoors and it's pretty gloomy. That's not very fun. But last year, getting the chance to go down with some of my teammates and close friends to Florida, train outdoors there was rejuvenating. Kind of was excited about approaching the championship season versus I mean, obviously it was work, but it was a lot of fun too. So I think that was really important.
Yeah. I mean, like, and I think especially in college, like you kind of build very different connections than you would like in high school. Just because, I mean, you kind of get to, I'm assuming you like get to know people like on recruiting, like when everyone comes in at the same time. And then like you, like with your training groups, like whichever group you train in, like you're going to be naturally, you're going to be a little bit closer to them than maybe like other people on the team. But like in that sense, there's a lot more, I think, than high school, just because in high school, at least when I swim in high school, everyone was kind of the same in the sense that we all focused on, like there was no like really specialty groups. Like we only would go into like our specialties every few times.
Right.
But like in college, I think it seems different in a sense that like you're always training the strong stuff, you know?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, speaking to what you said about relationships with people on the team, high school was definitely more, I would say, maybe unified across the entire team. For the fact that everyone, right, like you said, was swimming the same thing at the same time. We were doing all the same practices, and it was smaller. It was a smaller team too. I mean, college teams are pretty deep and large most of the time. I swam in a combined program in high school, and the team here was combined, which means that both guys and girls are swimming at the same time together. So that creates a sense of unity across the team too. In high school, especially, I feel like swimming is broken down more into, at least from Indiana, boys and girls. I mean, meets are different. Meets are separate.
Yeah.
In college, they're all together. Guys and girls are at the same meet. So there's no really breakdown there, except for obviously the championship meets. So yeah, but in college, swimming with a tinier group, it was more, I didn't really get to train with everyone on the team. I mean, there were people who I didn't ever train with at all during my time here. So, and that's just for the fact that people have different strengths. So obviously, maybe not obviously. I was not a distance person. I was in the sprint group. So I got really close with my sprint group. But I didn't have much interaction, say, with other strokes or distances, and I think not that it created a sense of disunity or
like division,
but it was definitely different.
Yeah, I think like those close relations, like I think it's kind of cool, like in college, that like you guys are united as a team, like you guys are all the Hoosiers of Indiana, but at the same time, like you can also be like. You can be like a sprinter, you can be an IMer, or you can be like a distance person, but like it's still like one thing. Like I know like in high school, just because everyone did the same thing, or at least like a lot of times like we're grouped kind of the same. Like when I swam in high school, we did this thing called the cruise test, where like you did 6 100s, you got 5 seconds rest in between each 100. And then your time after you're done with the set gets taken, you divide it by 6, and then you get like an average time. And then we do that for freestyle, your primary stroke, and secondary stroke. And we also used to do that with kicking as well. But like everyone would be grouped in lanes based on their freestyle cruise test. Yeah. So like if you were doing strokes, it made training in that sense more difficult because you'd have like flyers be with breaststrokers and back, like it would just be all intermixed. And swimming butterfly with maybe like a backstroker would be a little more difficult, just because I mean, you know, like you could hit you could hit each other, and I mean you could do that in butterfly too, but like in butterfly it's a little more like if it's just butterfly, it's more controlled, I feel like, you know.
Yeah, we're getting deep into it, but yeah, definitely breaking up the groups between, I mean, stroke groups is important. I mean, we talk about the difference between college and high school again. With high school being like everyone's on the same time schedule. You don't really have a lot of leeway or flexibility with the times that you can schedule people, and you're also most of the time working with a limited space. Yeah. College is not really that difficulty because I don't know, people can change their schedules to be what you want or what you need in order for training. So people are training at different times than each other. We have more space generally because of that. And so we're able to spread out more, and more space kind of gives you the opportunity to focus in more, because you don't have to just throw everyone in the same group for, I don't know, time and space wise. So another example of just how detailed, I don't know, college or in specific college training can get.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because like I know like in high school, like it's not like everyone's on the same schedule. Like even like I'm assuming you guys have like different morning practice schedules. Like maybe like you come in like you'll train twice a day on some days of the week, once on some days of the week, and lift. Some days like it's recovery. But like in high school, everyone's doing the same thing at the same time. Like
Right.
everyone's going to be lifting. Like if the team lifts on Tuesdays and Thursdays, everyone's lifting Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you're swimming in the mornings, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, everyone's there. Like there is no real separation, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, almost no separation at all in high school. The only separation came when it came down to the girls training for their championship meet and the boys training for their championship meet, which were 2 weeks apart. So that was like for a month at the very end of the season when things got split, and that was the only way things got split. Talking about my experience here last year, I was in sprint group and we lifted more than other groups would. As you can imagine, the distance people aren't necessarily lifting as much or doing the same lifting program as say someone doing the sprints would. So not only different schedules, but different weight schedules too. So I think we lifted more, like just in pure number of hours, more than other groups did.
Yeah, I think. Because, like, with sprinting, you need a lot more. I think you'd probably need, like, a little more mass and, like, muscle mass in that sense, just because you're trying to move your arm, like, you're trying to move your body through the water as fast as possible. In order to do that, you need to grab as much water as possible while also being able to move your arms as fast, like, arms and legs as fast as you can.
Right, and the payoff being that with more muscle mass, there's more fatigue, but the fatigue aspect doesn't play as much of a role when you're only doing 50 yards versus when you're doing 1,650 yards. So
yeah, I would not imagine like sprinting a mile in the water.
Impossible. That
would be a complete nightmare. And I mean, even just like if you watch someone try to sprint a mile. Like they maybe could do it for like a 500, but then after that you'd see like a dramatic drop in like time. Like you might not feel that like when you're swimming, like you probably would feel like you're still going like the same speed or like that you're putting in the same amount of effort, you know, but like the time, like the clock would say a different story.
Yeah, I mean, even at the highest level in the 100 freestyle, there's a drop off after their first 50. So I can't imagine sprinting anything as long as a 500. I don't even know if I could swim a 500 right now. So
yeah, me neither.
So yes, I don't know. Sprinting, you definitely start breaking down. After the 200, in college, the 200 yard freestyle is considered, I think, a sprint event. But anything longer than that is distance. So you start putting different people in for those events. And yeah, so that's a completely different story, a whole different group.
Unless you want to see them like just struggle, then you can put them.
That's cruelty. That's a cruel and unusual punishment if you're making a sprinter do some distance events. But I was never put in that position where I had to do distance events, not even in high school. So
I mean, I know like in high school we did. Like we would do test set Saturdays where we do like lactic acid sets where you do like either 6 100s, 875s or 1250s, and you would just go as fast as you could for as long as you could. And I think with that, it was always kind of fun seeing like the sprinters would all go like really fast at the beginning, and then would kind of taper off a little bit like towards the end just because of the fatigue, like you were saying earlier, like with more muscle, like you get more fatigued. But like the distance swimmers would just be going the same time, like the entire time, no matter what. Just because they were able to do that, because that's what they trained to do.
Yeah, they might not be going as fast in the beginning, but they're holding on way better. That was for us. We did that on Wednesday nights here. We'd put our fast suits on, suit up, and do some sprints. That was always a blast. It was always fun. But at the end, you were definitely feeling it, even with the smaller number of sprints that we were doing. And I think everyone was feeling it. Maybe I was feeling it more than others, but yeah.
I know. I mean, I know like in high school also we would do it like by stroke. I mean, I'm sure like you guys also did it by stroke as well. But like I would always do breaststroke, and my shins at the end would be shot. Like the only way I could like make it feel somewhat better was like just pouring water down my shins, like from my water bottle. That was it.
Yeah, there were some times where I was in shambles, some better than others, but yeah, no, there were some days where you're crawling, you feel like you're crawling on the pool deck. So some tough ones, but yeah, I mean it was fun. I think that was the highlight of the week, and it was kind of like the very middle of the week too, in order to kind of emulate that feeling of what you're going to feel like maybe during a meet, in the middle of a meet. So.
And for you guys, like for college, would you guys like separate the heats based on like what stroke you guys were doing or what event you guys would be doing, like in the like at the practice, like based on what you normally would do? Like the sprint group would have like 1 or 2 heats, and then like breaststroke group would have like 3 heats or something. I don't know.
Yeah, the way it was kind of set up was, say, maybe there's like three different sets per se. Maybe one set is a 50 and a 75, and then you'd be assigned how many sets you were going to do. So usually I was doing like the very like bare minimum, like the minimal sprint stuff. So it was like I was swimming a 50 and a 75 twice. So I was doing that twice. And then maybe there was another set that's a 50 and 100, or a 75 and a 150, and someone would do like a combination of one of those 3 sets. And some people would do like 2 of the minimal sets, and then maybe they'd switch around. But yeah, the heats were always ordered in by stroke. And then obviously by set too. I mean, you weren't going to have someone doing a 50 against someone doing a 75. Just doesn't make sense for the timing purposes, and also just like, I don't know, comparative purposes. But yeah, that's usually how they're broken up.
Yeah. And like in high school, sometimes we separated it by time, like based on like what you swam. Like sometimes you'd see like backstrokers doing like racing against breaststrokers and butterflyers. Like, it was weird. Like I feel like that'd definitely be like a benefit, like with college training, like being like just like the aspect of groups and specialties, kind of having more of an elevated role in training and like how you guys train.
Yeah, I mean there were some times where I was getting beat, me swimming freestyle and someone swimming backstroke. That I think that just kind of speaks to the level of performers that they were on the team. So maybe I wasn't always racing the fastest freestylers when I was doing freestyle, but it was maybe more beneficial for me to be racing someone that was doing fly when I was doing freestyle. So, but yeah.
I think that's a good spot to end for today. Thank you guys all for coming on and listening in. I know this is a bit of a longer episode, but I mean that's kind of what happens when you're in a discussion like type of setting. Like when it's more like when it's just you, like it's very easy to just kind of, go through it. But like with like talking with another person, it's a whole different kind of episode, which makes it unique and special in that way. So thank you all for coming on. Next week is finals week. So there will still be an episode. And I'll see you guys all next week. There's no college football this weekend. Just have a nice weekend. And anyone who's a college student, study for the finals, I guess.